He has a 1-1 count. That one's struck high. Left side. That one's going. That's right here off the ropes. You have to be kidding me. Here you go. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome one and welcome all inside another edition of High and Tight, the flagship show, part of the IA Baseball Network. As always, please like, share, subscribe, all that jazz as we continue to give you baseball from the high school, professional, and college levels here in the state of Iowa. Again, all with an Iowa twist. And of course, as always, don't forget to check out all the content that we've got rolling on Rockfin, rockfin.com/IA Baseball. A lot of great stuff there, including not only these conversations, but more as well. Plus, head on over to the IA Sports YouTube page, and you'll catch all the content from IA Sports. That's wrestling, track, everything that we have, including IA Softball, which just came about. We'll get the chance to see all that softball has to offer here in the state as well. But for right now, ladies and gentlemen, again, as we roll on, again, this stream brought to you in part by Insulites. It is a fun conversation that we are going to get to have, and I say fun because there's a whole lot to take apart here, a whole lot to dive into, something that's revolutionary coming to Iowa here, and we get the chance to talk all about it right here and right now. And again, if you get the chance, you'll want to be involved with this. So there's a lot of cool stuff, a lot of stuff for you to get involved in, and let's just dive into it right here and right now. And of course, I'm not going to go ahead and give it away just yet. I've got a couple people to help describe what is coming to Iowa and all that there's going to be. And of course, a familiar name to the show, Coach Romanchuk joining us as well. We've got Alex Hale joining us from the CHIPS organization here, and we'll dive into that here just a bit. But man, what a fun time it is. Again, straight from the CHIPS, Alex and Evan joining us here. And first off, Coach Romanchuk, I want to say welcome back. The last time we had a conversation here, it was a really fun one, really enlightening, and we had a blast, and so great to have you back here.
Yeah, thanks for having me again, and it's always a pleasure to talk with you, Andrew, and really excited to get the CHIPS Iowa that's coming here and introduce it to the world today, and really describe what we're going to do here for the state of Iowa for baseball.
Yeah, no doubt about that. And of course, helping to do that here is Alex, who's joining us. And Alex, you're one of the co-founders of CHIPS. First off, thanks for taking the time to join us here, and thanks for bringing this to Iowa.
Absolutely, it was time. We started expanding, and the first place we wanted to expand was to our neighbor to the east, and so starting in Omaha, bringing it to Iowa, it was the first step, and we're gonna have other places opening nationwide. It's gonna be pretty exciting, but we wanted to make sure the Midwest was where we took care of first, and so with our style of training, we think it resonates with that Midwest feel of it's no nonsense, it's hard work. We have all the tech, but we also focus on each individual player's development and then creating that competitively supportive culture, which we've had a lot of success with, and it seems to resonate with players and creates a development experience that we don't think has been seen before. And so that's what we're going to continue to do out here in Iowa.
And first off, right off the bat, looking at this, it seems obviously like a baseball player's dream. It's something that they can really focus on with that. But take us through break us down for what is CHIPS in the grand scheme for someone who hasn't really heard it before. If they've lived under a rock and finally getting out of it here, what is CHIPS? How do you explain what the organization is?
So CHIPS performance training is catching, hitting, infielding, pitching, and then strength training. So we do all aspects of what improves a player's on-field performance. That's our number one objective. We don't get too caught up in, the metrics all the time. We track them so players can track the development, but we want it to be an experience because baseball's a hard game. And when guys get too caught up in comparing themselves, we think comparison's the thief of joy, like it is with anything.
Yeah.
And so we wanted to make sure that players have an understanding of the holistic view of what we're getting them into, map out their plan. We take them step by step through it so they know what to expect. And we educate parents on how that process is going to go, what it's going to look like. And we're in it with them. I mean, that's the biggest thing with Iowa and the guys we've brought in and the partners we've brought in. We've been able to take what we originally wanted to do and expand it, make it even better.
Nice.
In, things like the Silver Learning Center, having PTs in-house, having the training pieces that we don't need to be – there's no egos involved. And so that's the number one thing is everybody's there for the right reasons. We make sure that everybody's on the same page, and it helps elevate the players' training to a whole different level when you're not trying to cram kids in there and pile it in there. It's just a different way to go about it. And when we wanted to bring it to Iowa, they shared our vision and for what it was when we started, and it's been really cool seeing what's going on.
Yeah, and that is something that, again, I love to see in Iowa. I love to see the fact, again, we already know that Omaha is great, and Nebraska in general is just great baseball. And we've seen a lot, again, all that hype and all that stuff finally get into Iowa, and Iowa starting to get there again. Coach Romanchuk, you doing a lot with that. First off, before we go any further, Coach, I want to kind of dive into the backstories of you guys. And I say that primarily because I love things that are legitimate. You guys bring legitimacy to this. Your experiences are there, and that's one thing I really want to highlight here. So, Coach Romanchuk, I'll start with you. You and I have talked a number of times. We've already gone through. You've been in helping out athletes for quite some time. So, for those who again may not be aware, you've had an extensive list of being with some big time talent, helping some big time talent, not just get to the collegiate level, but even beyond that.
Yeah, fortunate enough that had a chance to coach some really good baseball players over the years. I got started in coaching 2009 in Vancouver, where my first year coaching had a player named Rowan Wick, who went on to have a pretty nice big league career, and he actually played here in Iowa for the Iowa Cubs.
Nice.
And then from there, moved here to Des Moines, worked with Perfect Game, had some really good talent there that I was able to coach, a lot of D1 guys. And then from there, kind of started the own deal here in Des Moines, and was fortunate enough to have a lot of good players over the years. Carter Baumler, Sean Gamble, Sam Peterson, Jackson Wentworth, Justin Hackett, Anthony Watts, just some really good baseball players that, were going to be great baseball players regardless of who coached them.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I mean, they're great talents. I think that a lot of, coaches want to, say, oh, these are my guys, and they're not my guys. I was just fortunate enough to coach them and be able to be part of their path, and hopefully, help them along their path. But I got to see how talent like that, it's the work ethic. And those guys were who they are because of how they worked and creating a culture, and they were culture guys. And I think that that's the most important thing when bringing chips here to Des Moines is, continue that culture of hard work, being a good teammate. And that's what those guys were. And that's why they are who they are. I've been coaching the travel ball scene for 14 years, got heavily involved with, PBR, PG, all of the big travel ball organizations, being able to, help along the way of, this is how to build a tournament company. This is how to, build a showcase company and, create things like the Pro Case and really just be able to showcase players and their talent and their hard work.
Yes.
And that's what it's about, is making these kids feel like the stars that they are, because there's so much talent. And,
you're right.
There's also a lot of criticism that goes towards it. And it's like, well, we don't have to focus on that. We can focus on the positivity of it and the great things that these players are accomplishing. So that's kind of been my backstory of, just helping players get to the next level, and, whether that's on the field or off the field. Yeah.
And it's certainly what I love the fact that it's always with the players in mind. And again, with Chips, definitely it hits that tune here real well. Alex, I did want to go to you now. Again, obviously, I had to look. I looked over the website, saw your bio, and I'm obviously really impressed you know the game very well, but it's not like you jumped off the wagon and you're just starting this right now. There's a lot of times you have had extensive time with this. So if you could tell us a little bit about your background. And again, very impressive the fact that so many years you've been doing this at different levels. So it seems as though you are one of the perfect guys, along with Coach Romanchuk, to know what's going to happen at the next level, to get them there wherever they're at. So, I wanted to go ahead. What's your background? How'd you get into, again, just baseball? How'd you get involved with Chips?
So I started Chips. We started 19 months ago.
Yep.
And it was probably a 2-year process from then to where we are now. But my passion for it came from my sophomore year. I actually came to a perfect game showcase in Iowa. And nice. I saw Ryan Sweeney. Ooh. And it was one of those experiences where I was ready to focus on baseball, and I'd played 3 sports up until that point, so I was going into my junior year. And I think my dad took me to the showcase to kind of show me why it was a bad idea to quit the other sports. And I had a good pop time, I had a good day, whatever, and it kind of got started. But I got to see what 6'5", running a 6'5", 60, throwing 97 from the outfield, going to be a first-round pick, look like in person. And that just hooked me. And I was like, this is awesome. Like, I didn't even know there was kids like that out there. And so that kind of drew me in. And then so I did a couple more perfect game events, got to go area code, stuff like that. And then I ended up playing in college. And I always look back at that as like that exposure, that being around other players and seeing what they were doing was so motivating for me. Mm-hmm. It wasn't discouraging, like, oh, he can do this and I can't. It was like, okay, now I know what I'm chasing. Now I know why I have to keep working. When you get in those cold months in the cold months in the winter, and you're like, okay, I'm doing good enough. It's like, no, that was always in the back of my mind. So from there, after I got done playing pro ball, it was like, okay, I need to get back into baseball. And that's a big part of what Chips does too, is allows coaches to stay in the game and be able to connect with players on a much bigger, deeper level, because we get to see them more often. And so that was one of the pieces that we wanted to bring into it too, was providing somewhere for baseball guys to come back to, and we needed to expand that to be able to reach more coaches, to be able to take care of more guys, because that's a huge part of what Chips is about, is growing the game and making sure that it's a place where guys can be supportive, not just the players but the coaches.
Yep.
So that's how I got into it. I realized a long time ago I wasn't messing players up along the way. Like Evan said, like, we get to be a part of their journey, and I'm grateful for that. I've gotten to see guys go from 5.5 years old to 22, 23 years old now, and so it's getting to see one of my players go out, take the field during the College World Series and win a national title at Tennessee last year brought a tear to my eye. It was like, this is what it's about. Like, it's not that we do it for them, but it's really, really cool to see the evolution of the player from beginning to end and throughout their career, and just be a part of it. And so it's super rewarding, and that's why that's why we started Chips. My wife actually came up with the name Chips. Because she couldn't come up with the name. I was like, what do I call this thing? And she's like, name it something you like. Make it an acronym. And I'm like, what, like pizza? And she was like, I don't know. What else? I was like, I like Chips. I don't know. So I started looking at it and go, wait, catching, hitting, infielding, pitching, strength. And when we started, it was funny because everybody kept asking, who's Chip? What does Chips mean? Why is it called Chips? But it was easy to say. There was no confusion. Yep. And now it's just become synonymous with high level baseball training. And if we expand into softball or other sports, like, it could expand into that too, because the performance training culture has become what separated it. And that's so cool to see, because we want it to be an experience. We want kids to come in and go, this is a cool place to train, and this is where I get to train. And that was one of the things that we saw kids taking pride in from the jump, and something that when they see this place in Des Moines, it blows the doors off the place we got in Omaha. So like, it's a whole different level.
Oh man, that just makes it a little much more exciting. I can't wait for it to get here. But I also, really quickly, I love the fact that, again, it seems like it's just an atmosphere and experience, as you talked about, the experience of it all. But it's an experience, it seems like you said, and about any age level can be a part of it, if I'm not mistaken. It seems like a lot of people can just have fun with it, get involved, do stuff with it as well. But again, it seems like really holistic. Like, you're not missing out. You're developmentally from mentally, physically, all that kind of stuff. It seems, and I assume that was kind of by design, the way that it was set up. it seems very intentional that was, you're going to be, from the moment you get there to the moment you're done, your holistic approach.
We didn't want players to feel alone during their developmental journey, because there's a lot of times when, as a player, you're going, well, okay, I can't do this. Why is that okay? Like, why is it okay that I'm not running as faster as that other guy or throwing as hard? And when we are able to sit down with players, guys are all at different levels when they start. There's different experience levels, different physical maturity levels. There are different phases in their development. Mm-hmm. So we meet kids where they start, rather than say, well, you should be. It's like, there's no should be. You shouldn't be doing anything other than when you're playing a game, you should go to the plate because it's your turn. Try to get a pitch you can hit. And that's all you're trying to do. Mm-hmm. And so from that standpoint, getting players and parents to start to realize, like, this can be a much more fun process, but it depends on how you choose to look at it.
Yeah.
And our development experience is really based on getting to know the players. Our coaches are part of that, and they get to know the guys personally. They greet them when they come in. If they don't know them, they get to know them. Like, it's one of those things like at Disneyland where you stop and everybody's in character, because when you build a culture around that, it becomes the standard, it becomes the expectation, and then people take pride in it, and then the players take pride in it. The players are expected to keep the building clean. We'll vacuum and wipe everything down, but like the players pick up the balls, the players put the stuff back where it goes. You respect the dojo, right? And you take care of what's yours and what you're a part of. And so it's been really cool to see kids gravitate towards that. Our college guys the first year did a great job, like, setting that tone. And
nice.
Like, this is what we're bringing to every facility we open, because this is huge for giving kids that responsibility and letting them take ownership of what they're doing.
And again, as we look through this, again, really cool, overall great atmosphere, everything like that. This is something that as going through my notes, it seems like it's a year-round. You're not missing anything, like at every point in the year. Can you take us through what that looks like from a year-round basis? I know in Iowa, obviously that means, there's summer ball in Iowa. We'll get to that here in just a bit. But what does it mean from the year-round basis when they get in there? Are there different points throughout the winter that you look at differently in terms of training versus summer and things like that, knowing that other states and stuff have a summer circuit different than Iowa? But is there kind of a different timeline that you do based off of the different times of the year?
Absolutely. I think you have to meet everybody where they are, again. And it's, if you're in season, focusing on maintaining your body's overall health, make sure you're sticking with the programming that you were doing, but not overloading you. Like we said, it's an experience. One of the things we bring to the experience for the player is we do check-ins with them daily. Like, when they come in, most of our guys we'll see anywhere from 5 to 7 days a week in the off season, usually maybe 2 to 3, 4 times a week during the in season. But we check in with them, just see how their energy levels are, how's their body feeling. We could have a day plan for them, but if they come in and they're super sore that day, or they're just, the energy's low, they had a test the day before, whatever, then they come in, we're like, okay, let's maybe do a mobility day, let's get some swings in, let's get you out of here, let's get your body recovering and focus on what you need individually, not just, well, I know you're sore, but today we're doing deadlifts. Like, that doesn't make any sense. So we felt like a lot of things in the industry were getting a little cookie cut and getting a little kind of just generic, and we wanted to bring back that personal touch. And everyone told us, well, it takes a lot to do that. And we were like, okay, but is that the only thing holding us back from doing it? Like, there's a lot more planning out. Like, we can handle that. And so we jumped right in, and with Iowa being like summer baseball, being the high school season, we recognize that it's a little bit different, but that just makes the fall, winter, and spring that much more exciting. So it's just a shift. And then when we jump into the fall, then we can help with, we have coaches and players that have been through or are in the recruiting process. And so having people that you can go, hey, the school hasn't reached out to me. What does that look like? What do I do now that I'm in my high school seasons in the summer? What do I do? How do I reach out to coaches? Because whereas in the spring, everybody else is playing, colleges are playing, high schools are playing. In the summer, those coaches are free. So you have a much more, it's a much more pertinent responsibility as a player to be like, I'm pitching on this day. Here's my schedule, coach. Like, I want you to come to my games, and helping players do that, helping educate them on what they need to be doing so that they're not missing the little things. Because like when we were kids, we didn't know what we were doing. We were trying to get recruited. Like we're sitting there going, I don't know. I hope somebody reaches out. I hope my coach, tells the school something. I hope they find me. And now there's better ways to go about it. But but players want a little bit of guidance.
Yep.
You don't want to just go jump into the deep end and hope there's no sharks in there. You want to like have an idea of what to expect. And so that's how we approached it. And it's really cool with what's going on, because it is there's so many players that wanted to do more.
Yep.
And we felt like that market was kind of getting left behind a little bit. So we wanted to be able to bring this to the players, and we have guys who care and do it the right way. So
yeah. Amen to that. I love it. Again, seems like it's going the right way. Again, Chips, obviously, again, love the name. Love how you got that there as well. Coach Romanchuk, I did want to ask you as well here with this. You have seen, again, at Iowa, a lot of guys that have kind of gone a different route in terms of, going to different academies, different stuff like that. And a lot of it is they want to immerse themselves in baseball as well as have any academic help there with them. They want to focus on baseball and academic. They have to do academics. Obviously, it helps in the overall run. But what Chips brings is a little bit of that here as well, if I'm not mistaken. And I kind of want to get your take on this when it comes to. Obviously, there's the physical intangibles, but then the academics in there. You guys have put an emphasis on that. How does that, again, impact the athlete long term? Why bring academics into this? How does that help when in terms of if a guy's just focused on baseball?
Yeah, so I think when we were building the Chips here in Des Moines, the focus was to make it like a D1 Power 5 baseball experience. So having all the amenities that you would have inside a Division I institution, and having kids get familiar with that and be able to have all the tools necessary to be a Division I baseball player or be a college athlete. So when we put it together, obviously having all of the great baseball tech with all the different technology like Hit Tracks, TrackMan, Stalker radar system. And then on the strength side, going with the VALD testing system to be able to track all of our players. VALD is what the NFL uses, is what MLB uses. Really hasn't gotten down into youth sports. So when you kind of look at the overall kind of business of training, I think that clubs have been around for a long time and kind of done that, and there's been some training facilities that kind of focus on lessons. But there's never been kind of that place to go where when you're on campus, you go and spend 5-6 hours a day there, right? And be with your friends and be with your teammates, and build a culture. So, academics is obviously what gets you to the next level, right? If we're not a good student, it's very hard to go on to play college baseball. So, one of the ideas that we had was, we wanted to make sure that players didn't lose sight of that. And so, we reached out to Sylvan Learning Centers, and, we said, hey, we want to do something for the student athlete. And, for the first time that, we're going to have Sylvan inside of a baseball facility to where we've got certified teachers to help our players with, homework assist, ACT prep, or just general, like getting up to the right level of reading and writing for the younger players. So making sure that it's all encompassing. And then, it's been a toll on parents these days because there's so much out there, right? Sylvan Learning Center, speed and strength facility, baseball facility. We wanted to put that all under one roof. So, for us, the parents, they know that they can drop their kid off, and they're going to be inside of a great environment. They're going to have a great experience. They're going to get all the baseball that they need. We've brought in Corey Winter, who's been the Valpo recruiting director for the past 5 years. He's going to be the head of our baseball ops. So that you're in good hands.
Yes.
You have a Division I recruiting coordinator, running the baseball ops. We went to Engineered Performance by Demos to run our speed and strength. They've, worked with guys like Brody Breck, some of the best athletes, just not in baseball, but in all sports. And they brought us Cole Crawford. He's going to run our speed and strength and arm care. His brother's the pitching coach at University of Minnesota, Alec Crawford. Really good guys that, have the experience and know how to create a culture and be able to give the best experience possible for these players and make them feel at home. And that's the biggest thing is when you come inside of Chips, it's a membership, right? It's a club. It's not a team. It's an environment where players can come be themselves, inside of a positive environment and grow. And that's what we want to provide for these kids. So that includes the classroom, making sure that they're up to par with their academics, making sure they're getting faster and stronger with the speed and strength, and working on their baseball skills. I think it's just something that hasn't been done before, to where, hey, you can drop somebody off for 4 hours, and they can get everything in. We build a clubhouse inside of the facility, so players have a place to just be themselves, be kids inside of the baseball environment. Because to me, that was like the best experiences in college baseball and pro baseball, is like just being in the clubhouse and having that time to just be yourself inside of an environment that, hey, it's a game we love, and around other people that love the game the same way.
And again, with both of you being from, again, high level, you've played at high levels, you've been there, you've done that. One of the things that I wanted to touch up on here now is there's talk about, there's a phrase that I keep hearing about improvement without exposure. You guys do a good job of obviously getting these guys ready and gearing up. I wanted to get your Alex, I'll start with you here. With that phrase, improvement without exposure. One, what does that mean to you, or what does that mean to everyone else? What should they take away from it, I guess, in the grand scheme? Because today we're all about, there's social media everywhere. Everyone wants to get noticed. Everyone wants to be seen. Everyone wants, there's always something that everyone wants to be known about. But then there's sometimes, thankfully not a lot, where you get guys coming up to the plate and it's like they haven't swung a bat before, or whether it's be the yips or something like that. But I did want to get your take on, I like the thought of, improvement without exposure. Can you take us through your thoughts on that just a little bit, and kind of how CHIPS makes that happen and really truly gets you prepared for that next level?
Yeah. So when you talk about the overexposure of youth players today has really impacted kids, because they feel like they always have to be hitting a PR. They always have to be performing, getting the results that go along with what they see on social media. And it's a fallacy to believe that what you see on social media is real life, because what you don't see is the failures that come along with it that got that player to that point. And I think that's where we come in and provide some clarity and some structure. One thing we started doing in Omaha was we started doing weakness Wednesdays, where when guys come in, they know on a Wednesday, I got to work on what I'm not good at. And it's just guys swinging and missing, and there's balls going everywhere. But it's so fun once it clicks with the players, oh, this is what everybody's doing today. We're all failing together. And it teaches them not to be afraid of it, because they realize this is much better. It's much better to do it here in a safe environment with your friends or with guys that than to wait until it happens on the field. Maybe this could prevent some of those swings and misses, some of those at bats. And so from that standpoint, we said, I've told parents for a long time, you got to be really careful about posting stuff on social media, because your kid is going to notice, one, that you post, two, that they're going to notice when you don't. And it doubles down on when they have bad games. And I try to tell parents to be very cautious. My kid's 5 right now, and we'll go to games, and when a kid swings and misses, I'll hear a parent go, "Oh," and I'm like, he didn't know it was that big of a deal until he heard you. And so you got to be really careful with just letting them play and letting them go through the process. Let the game teach them, all the lessons that it's going to. It's not a reflection of you. And if you can separate yourself from that and just let your kid play, they're going to have more fun. You're going to enjoy it more. Take the good with the bad. But from a standpoint of exposure, guys should get exposure when they're ready for it.
Yep.
It doesn't need to be the whole way through. And that's one thing that we've been really good about with our training, is highlighting the work as well as the results. And I think that's something that we see, because one kid's success is a huge jump for him, whereas that might not be the same as big of a deal for another kid. But you don't have to compare the two. You don't have to compare. They're not the same player. They're not the same. It's not the same journey. And so at the end of the day, giving them the best experience possible is what we try to do. And as Evan and I coached against each other for a long time, and as we got talking about this, we realized we spoke the same language, and we were we got to bring this to Iowa. How can we do this? And getting the right people involved was the first step. And they brought great guys in, and they've really embodied what CHIPS is about. Where it's not about me, it's not about him, it's not about one individual coach. It's about all of us working together. And building something really, really cool for youth players.
Yeah, and that's ultimately, when it is that way, it seems really grassroots or really original. Again, there's nothing that's come out of there that hasn't been genuine or real. It really seems like that. And last thing before we move on to the next segment here is, again, with it being Iowa, I feel like Iowa baseball has really come a long way in the last 10, 15 years, or really it's come a long way, at least a lot more recognizable. Coach, you talked about that as well. Just a lot of guys that are more recognizable now. And it seems as though, that there are, again, the Iowa's kind of wanting this. It seems like there's been the thirst for this, and now we're realizing, hey, this is what we've wanted for a while here. But the talent in Iowa, I feel, gets overlooked sometimes. And this seems like a good way for guys to, kind of like you were talking about, Coach, just kind of knock it out, just focus on what you're doing and your improvement, but also to kind of get your head right and where you need to go. Again, so much talent here. And Coach Romanchuk, I'll go to you with this. It just seems like the talent in Iowa is ready for something like this. And it seems like when I look back at it, like, man, if only we had a time machine to go back 5 years, you and I were talking about a lot of these same stuff 5 years ago, it seemed like.
Yeah. And I think it's just, kind of what goes on, at the top down, right?
Yep.
So if you look back about 15 years ago, there started to become these pro facilities that were individualized training. You look at a drive line, you look at a Cressy, you look at a tread. These were the pro players, right? It wasn't from the team, right? It was, hey, let's find the best coaches, the best environment for us to get better as a pro player. And I think that, that's kind of now trickled down to where it doesn't really matter what team you play for.
Yeah.
It is, because you can't choose what high school you go to, right? You can be at, a great high school, and there's so many here in the metro, or you be, in a smaller town where, hey, baseball maybe isn't as prevalent. But still, there's that passion. And, Iowa's got such a great history. I mean, Perfect Game started here, right? Jerry Ford started Perfect Game, and now it's the biggest scouting high school tournament company in the country, right? Or in the world. So, that started here in Iowa. So Iowa's always been a trailblazer for the game of baseball, and the passion here for the game is just, it's so deep. So being able to now kind of, follow that trickle down effect of, hey, this is what the pro guys are doing, right? They're going to a facility where they can get everything done in one spot.
Yep.
Know the guys, same guys in there every single day. So they have the familiarity with coaches. A lot of these places have a lot of coaches. They trickle through, right? And you see a different guy every day. It's going to be the same guys every day that you come in there and you build that personal relationship. And for me as a coach, I found the best results that I got with players was when I had that personal relationship, because if they trust you as a person, they're going to trust you as a coach.
Yep.
And for Iowa now to have something like this, it's kind of selfishly, it's a dream come true for me.
Yeah.
I've got an 8-year-old son, and this is what I would want as a kid, right?
Yep.
And that's kind of me and Alex talk about that when we built this, and when he built his facility and the other ones that are going around the country. It's like building what we wanted as a kid, right? And like what we would need as a kid to get us to that higher level. And so now here in Des Moines, we've got a place where, hey, you sign up for a membership, and now you've got a home, and you can go there every day and be with your buddies. It's a safe space. You can be yourself inside of a positive environment and have all of the best training and all of the best tech available.
In Iowa, we are fortunate to have a lot of opportunities to get involved in at our schools.
Athletics and activities have so many positive effects. From learning how to build relationships and healthy lifestyles,
and gain self-esteem and confidence.
Make participation a priority. You and your school will benefit.
So as we continue on and again talk more about chips, and again, ladies and gentlemen, any thoughts, questions, more, reach out to us, or of course just head on over to the website, check what they've got out there at chipsperformance.com. Great place there, and just a load of information. So make sure to check it out there. But right now, what I love here, Alex, I'll go with you here on this one, mainly because I love personalities in the game. And I'll be honest, I'm a guy that I'm okay with, say the Dodgers, having all this talent, being the bad guys, quote unquote. I like Bryce Harper. I like where he's come from, the energy he brings. And so I like the personality, but one, just because it's a game that I love, and I love guys who enjoy it as well. And it seems like you have done just that. And I want to talk on Swag and Shades, the persona that you have kind of brought forth. And honestly, as I look and as you guys were showing me earlier, it's just it's been a viral sensation almost. It seems like. And I love that because it's so grassroots. It's not something that was forced from somewhere else. You came up with it. First off, talk us through one. Give us the details on how it came about, and how it has been with that persona.
So it came about, probably 8 years ago. There was all the social media stuff. There's like you'd had Facebook, then there was Twitter.
Yep.
And I was like. I was tired of my feeds constantly being filled with like people's baby pictures and like all this stuff, because that's kind of what it got to.
Yeah.
And I said, I just want a baseball feed. So on Twitter, you could make a second like page. And so I was like, I want just a baseball only feed. It'll just be kind of this fun name. And I was like, well, what do I want my players to look at and see the name of it and just kind of be kind of funny and kind of goofy. And I was like, well, I want them to have confidence. That's what I'm trying to instill in them. And I want them to have it, in spades. And I was like, or in shades. I was like, because we wear sunglasses in baseball. I was like, okay, swag and shades. Like, okay, this will be kind of funny. Like, no one will ever look at this. This will, what harm could come of it? And it kind of just became this thing. And so I had a little following on Twitter, which is now X. And then when we started doing the social media stuff, we didn't use the sunglasses. We didn't incorporate any of that because that didn't seem like it made any sense. And we were trying all these videos. We made like 240 videos. And finally, my assistant goes, why don't you just put the sunglasses on? And I was like, because we're inside. And she's like, nobody's watching our videos anyway. Like, just put them on. And I was like, good point. Okay. So we put them on, and it just kind of took off. And what we realized was when on Twitter, like you weren't really in front of the camera. They didn't do as much video as they do now.
Yeah.
On Instagram, it instantly created this avatar where it was like the coach you had when you were a kid, because we were behind the sunglasses, that he said good stuff, but you don't really remember his name. It was like that guy who just made a good impact on you as a player.
Yeah.
And people seemed to resonate with that. And so we just kind of kept it going. And it was really cool how people took to it. And I think once they kind of got over we don't really think we're too cool, like wearing the sunglasses inside. Like, it's just this, this avatar we're speaking through.
Yeah.
That it really started to take off. And it's been wild. We went from 10,000 to 225,000 in 14 months. And so we're on, all across social media. We're getting a lot more into long form now, but the short form stuff. It just really connected with people. And, and it's been really cool to see from Arizona to Florida when I've gone to coach and stuff. The response we've gotten from people has just been overwhelming. And so now we feel like this duty, this responsibility to keep being genuine, being honest and authentic. And whether we're talking about training or recruiting or confidence, there's just so many things that people. I love when parents come up and tell me I show my videos I show your videos to my kids all the time, and I'm like, that's really cool. One, it's kind of bringing them together. Two, a lot of times we're saying the same thing Dad said before, but it's coming from a different voice. And I'm seeing that now with my 5-year-old. Like, I'll tell him one thing and he'll be like, "Oh, Daddy, don't leave me alone. I can do it my way." And I'm sitting there like, okay, well, the kid at the SEC school listens to me, so that's fine. It's like, I don't have all these all-state guys this year. They call me for advice, but my 5-year-old's like, I got this. But it's funny because that's how that's the father-son relationships that everybody experiences. It's like, well, my dad, he's just my dad. He doesn't know what he's talking about. And so, but it's really cool to be able to have an impact on people and like a broad community, because we just realized we wanted to add value to the space. To the social media space, we realized it's a media space, and the social element that it started as back when Facebook started, all that stuff, is so much different than it is now, where it's really about media, and that's what TikTok kind of changed, and now everything runs off that algorithm where anything can go viral. And when you have the opportunity to have that much exposure, to me and to our team that does the social media, it's like, well, we have kind of a duty to do this the right way, to carry the right message. And we don't try to be too polished. We don't try to be too perfect. We don't try to, to be somebody we're not, because that would be exhausting. We knew it needed to be sustainable once we started, because we put out 3 videos a day at least. And so the content volume is really cool, but you got to, kind of have a strategy going into it saying like, okay, well, what do we want to do here? How outlandish are we going to be? Where's the line? Where's the line here? Where's the line here? And, and being honest and authentic with that goes a long way too.
Yep.
So it's been really cool to see the response we've gotten, because we kind of realized we were in a unique space where we're the only ones doing content on social media, not just educational, but also a little bit of entertainment, with an actual training facility that does high quality training.
Mm-hmm.
And we kind of realized we were kind of alone in that niche, and so we're like, well, might as well just keep it going. So it's brought along a lot of really cool opportunities, and we've gotten to meet so many cool people at different companies and stuff within baseball, that we just sit here and go, okay, now what can we do with this? Like, how can we improve, the baseball landscape now from our standpoint, and what can we, what kind of cool stuff we wanted as a kid? And that's always kind of what it comes back to. So.
Well, I can't wait, Coach Romanchuk, to see you in shades as well out there rocking that. We got to get the Iowa version of that rocking here. I think we can do that.
Anybody, I really don't wish it on anybody.
But and I just wanted it really is a cool thing because it adds to that atmosphere. Talking about there, and it just seems real comfortable. You walk in, it's like, man, almost seems like you're willing to be vulnerable in this sense where it's like, I'm just out here having fun, enjoying the game here too. And Coach Romanchuk, you and I talked about you gotta be willing to step out there, because in the end, you're trying to do arguably the hardest thing in the world, hit a round ball with a round bat. You got to take it serious, but you also got to have some fun with it.
Yeah, I mean, baseball's a game of failure, right? There's more failure in baseball than any other occupancy out there, right? Like, imagine a doctor who's considered the best doctor in the world, and he's failing 7 out of 10 times, right? Like, that's not good.
You're not going to keep that long.
But, if you're failing 7 out of 10 times, somebody's going to pay you $25 million, right? So it's you got to be able to deal with the failure, right? And you've got to be able to go along with the lumps, because this game will beat you up. But I think the environment and the culture that you put yourself in, and be able to, be lighthearted, right? Because, I mean, you have to be able to get through the hard times in this game, right? You're going to go 0 for 3. Sure. You're gonna get rocked on the mound. Like, it's baseball, right? The other team's training just as hard as you are. They're gonna have their day, and being able to be in it together, I think, is kind of the biggest thing, right? And I think that goes into life, to where, like, hey, we can go into business and be in it together as a team. It kind of sets the youth up to be successful in the real world, because I think that there's not a lot of competitiveness now in regular schools, right? It's kind of youth sports is what is building competitiveness and getting people ready for the real world to really be able to be successful in the real world. I think at some point I heard a crazy statistic, and I don't know if it's completely correct, but it's like something like 80% of CEOs and presidents of Fortune 500 companies were either military or college athletes.
It makes sense.
It makes sense, because they know how to work inside of a team environment. You have to be able to work inside of a team environment, and you have to be competitive. And so, I think that, us being able to coach that in life through the game of sports and baseball, is probably the coolest occupation for me. Just be able to set forth the future generations, and be able to learn from my mistakes, because I've made a lot of mistakes along the way. So, but being able to say, hey, like, this didn't work for me, or this mindset didn't work for me. Like, why don't you try this to get through it? And it's like, again, like, you're going to fail in this, and you have to be okay with failing. And when you are able to learn to deal with failure, it's just on to the next day, get better the next day. And that's what life is. It's stacking days and getting better each day. And I've got a long ways to go personally as well, right? Like, and where I coached 14 years ago to where I coach today is 2 totally different people. They wouldn't even recognize each other, because it's an evolution, right? Hey, this works, this doesn't. And I think that's kind of the key of life, is just being able to deal with the failure. And baseball is probably the greatest teaching tool of that, in my humble opinion.
And then, Alex, with that as well here, again, you and Coach Romanchuk seem to, again, very similar on a lot of these things, which is really cool. But along with that persona, along with what you do, it just seems like mentally, when you talk, I want to talk a bit about the mentality of the game here a little bit. Again, you got guys that have all the talent in the world that can kind of fall short sometimes. But one thing that is looking through video, looking through what you've done, it's always just what Coach Romanchuk has preached as well. Like, you know, you can take it serious, but also have some fun with it. Be you, because the mental side of the game, as much as we're improving on that, I also feel like, man, as high school guys, you still want to be the flashiest guy out there. And then if not, like you were saying, oh man, woe is us. But the mentality piece, how big is that? How much do you preach that in the day and just every day, you know, talking with guys, getting their workouts in, even through drills and stuff like that? How much do you find yourself talking about the mental side of the game with them?
All the time, because we talk about it all the time, because when you're doing a drill, if a kid gets frustrated during a drill, we'll stop him right there and say, if we're going to get frustrated in here when there's nobody, there's no runner, there's no, nothing's actually happening. What's going to happen in a game when it matters? Like all of a sudden we're going to put a lot more pressure on that. Well, if we're already reacting here, we're going to be reacting there. How can I expect you to bounce back the next play and the next ball that gets hit to you? And it's like, we got to start conditioning ourselves that as much as we want to, be hard on ourselves, and, because that's what kids think is like, well, if I'm hard on myself, I'm pushing myself. Okay. What's your hard though? Is the hard thing to let it go? Well, then if you want to push yourself, do the hard thing. Let it go. Say, give me another one. Be confident in the face of you just made a mistake, and say, well, that doesn't matter. I'm going to move. I'm going past that. I'm on the next pitch already. And if that's the harder thing to do, that's what you should be doing. If you really want to say that you're a perfectionist, you're challenging yourself, you're doing all those things, because that's what a lot of parents and players will say is, well, he's just super competitive. And I'm like, okay, well, then he needs to understand how to compete in a way that's going to actually benefit him. Something we use all the time with our players is, okay, so you're upset about your last game, you're upset about the results or whatever. How is that serving you? Is that serving you in the best way possible? Because if it's not, we need to challenge ourselves to say, okay, if this isn't serving me and helping me, beating myself over the head about it, then we probably need to focus on the next thing. Focus back on our training, focus back on what we were doing when we had success, looking at it a little bit more objectively, and just allowing ourselves to kind of take the good with the bad. It's like, okay, so you went 6 for 6, or we try to do logs of 20. So 20 at bats, and we say, okay, don't look at it until you get through 20. And then once you get through 20, you can look back and say, okay, here's what my approach was. Here's what I was trying to do. Here's how my swing felt. Here's the drills I was doing day to day. And here were the results I got. Because a lot of times our memory is not as good as we think. We'll go back and say, man, I hit 400 that weekend, or I hit 500 that week. And you're like, oh, man, I still had 0 for 2, 0 for 0 for 3. Like, how is that in there if I hit 500? It's like, because I turned, instead of getting really frustrated, my first 0 for 2 on this game, I got 2 hits. And then I went 2 for 4. I turned the 0 for 4 into a 2 for 4 because I stayed in it. I didn't let the first 2 at-bats throw me off. Or this game, I went 0 for 1 and worked 2 walks and hit a sac fly versus, chasing a pitch that makes it all of a sudden an 0 for 3. And so those little things add up. And when you can do that, it makes your stat line at the end of it look better. Now, we also talk about with guys like, okay, if you're really playing, if the stat line bothers you and the third baseman's back and you could lay a bunt down and get a hit, if you're not taking that for some ego reason or whatever, well, then I don't want to hear about your over, because that's a free hit right there. And you can open the field up for the rest of your team, make them be more honest and play up closer. And those are the things that's like, play the game. Don't play what you want to do. Don't swing out of your shoes for a high inside fastball that's never coming. Like, swing, look for what you're going to get. That's one of those college to high school player things where guys learn by being around those college guys, and they're like, okay, it is a little bit different. Or when coaches always say, like, have an approach, and the kid's like, okay, I'm ready to have an approach. What is it? And you're like, okay, simple approach. Keep it really simple for the kid. Like, if he's facing a guy who throws hard, try to pull it through the bottom of the fence in the pull side gap. If he's throwing slow, I'm going to try to drive it through the bottom of the fence in the oppo gap. And that helps a ton for players because it at least simplifies it. And that's where we try to come, how we try to approach it. And the mental side is so important because at the end of the day, I was a mess my senior year, like of high school, after being Gatorade Player of the Year, because the expectations I had on myself were so unrealistic, and I really couldn't even tell you what a good day looked like. Whereas my junior year, I was so process focused, it didn't matter what I did. It was just like, okay, I went 2 for 2, great. 3 for 3, great. 0 for 4, fine. Like it just kept going. And it was like, and it was it was a better place. And I was much more like that in college where I just played and the stats took care of themselves. But that senior year, I got so enamored with what does a good game even look like? I was a ball of stress. And once I kind of figured that out, it was like, I don't want a kid to ever have to go through that again, because that was a very lonely place to be as a high school kid.
I bet.
And they're going through a lot. And so like, and nobody could explain to me why. Why was it okay that I wasn't getting a hit and I'm a D1 commit, I'm getting a full ride to college and I didn't get a hit in this game. Why is that okay?
Yeah.
Everybody said, well, don't worry about it. You're fine. And I'm like, but why? And so I'm like, so now we have kids this spring, who are potentially going to get drafted out of high school. And when they're able to come in and go, hey, here's what's going on. And we're like, okay, and we can like talk them through it and be like, this is all you need to focus on. This is how this looks from a scout's perspective. This is what, a way to look at it that they're like, oh, okay. Because otherwise it's just they go home and mom and dad are telling them what they think. And their friends at school are telling them what they think. And none of their friends at school are in the same boat they are. Like they're not trying to get drafted this spring. They're just, focus on what's going on this weekend and what, other things that are happening. And when you have, and it helps to have a facility where other kids are getting recruited, other kids are going through the draft process. In the summer with our college training, other guys who are going through the NIL stuff and the portal stuff and all that stuff that comes with it. It helps to have other guys around you going through what you're going through.
Yes.
And as opposed to you're the best player on your team and all the other people tell you how great you are. Well, you're only going to get so much better when you do that.
Yeah.
And when you can go into a place where everybody's the best player on their team and they can all talk about how they weren't the best player on their team at 12 and 13
Right.
It motivates everybody. So the mental part's is such a big thing for us that we take it really.
In Iowa, we are fortunate to have a lot of opportunities to get involved in at our schools.
Athletics and activities have so many positive effects, from learning how to build relationships and healthy lifestyles,
And gain self-esteem and confidence.
Make participation a priority. You and your school will benefit.